Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. With summer coming on, it's time to clean up the junk around the backyard. I've already cleaned up a bunch of junk and it's in the trailer, a bunch of old mower parts and scrap metal. But as I'm cleaning up, I've found this old alloy green Victa base. Now you might remember a video. Marcus, a young lad, helped me out with some parts for the Silver Streak video, I believe. And as part of that, he had parted out this alloy deck. So I've been looking at this. What can I do with this alloy deck? Now I come across this old Craftsman Victa two-stroke mower. The steel base is rotted out. And what I'm thinking today is I'll actually make a bit of a Victa Frankenstein of the parts I've got around the place using this beautiful alloy deck here. But what I'm thinking, instead of the chrome handlebars, these risers I've got over here are pretty ordinary. I'm thinking I'll paint these black gloss. We'll use the black handlebars, we'll take the yellow capped wheels off, and we'll make a Victa Frankenstein. Let's call it Victa Frank, alloy bodied Powertorque mower. So let's get into it. So for those of you that have watched a few of my videos, it's probably not surprising that I actually have no history at all on this mower, and I've never even started it. So before we do anything today with the engine transplant, I'm going to check for two things. I'm going to check that we've got really good compression. I'll use my compression tester, and I'm going to check that we've got spark. Because if we've got compression and spark, I'm pretty confident that I can get this engine to run. So first of all, let's get this top cover out of the way. And perhaps not surprisingly around my yard, it's actually missing a few screws anyway. Get that off and out the way straight away. And then let's get the spark plug out. That's in there. Looks pretty dirty, so what we'll do is we'll actually check for spark using a brand new spark plug. So I'll just pop that in there like that. I'm just using this lead, which I've got here, just to ground that out to make it easy. And I'll get you around into a nice position where you can actually see that spark plug. All right, so we'll give it a pull. All right, so you can clearly see it's got spark there. The starter's a bit flaky, but you know, got decent spark. So knowing that the spark's healthy, let's get the decompressor off and check for compression. So just using my Knipex pliers here. Now, these are just fantastic. If you haven't got a set, buy a set. I'll chuck a link in the description. I know they're expensive, but they truly are the absolute best combination between multi-grips and just a real wrench. And the reason I can't use my wrench is my spanners are too fat to fit in with that decompressor there. So just nip that up tight there. That spare spark plug. Just adjust that down a fraction. Too far. And then put our compression tool in. Now the reason that we block off that decompressor port is just so that we're eliminating everything in case that decompressor's faulty. I just want to make sure I've got a solid core before I proceed with the engine swap. I can sort out fuel and decompressor, put a new starter on it, but let's just check if the core's good. All right, so bring that round into view, put that up there somewhere, and let's see if we can build some compression. It's not very good when you don't have much rope to pull with on that starter, but let's see. Not much here. There we go again. All right, so whilst the starter is not the best, you can see we're still pulling up to 80, 85 PSI. So that's a good enough core, that should run. So now that we've confirmed that we're actually going to use this core, let's get the spark plug back in, everything put back together. As most people would know if you've watched the channel, I really like to work on clean engines and mowers. So at this point, I'm just going to pressure clean this on this base. We'll pressure clean the other alloy base and we'll take it from there and start the swap. Just pop that up there. Get this old plug out the way. Might as well clean the decompressor and everything. Just nip that up tight. So we're just going to give everything a liberal bath in the degreaser, and then we're just going to pressure clean everything. So now that we've given it a clean up, let's get this motor off of this chassis. Get the carburetor off to start with. And let's get that tipped up out of the way. Start with, we'll get that cutting disc off. The blades on that actually look half reasonable, so that's good. And we'll get these bolts out there. Might as well just tip it all the way upside down. And let's get these bolts out. That would be that out of the way. Now we might just give this a bit of a clean here and maybe these brackets, but we'll also, whilst we're here, we'll get this muffler off. Everyone knows I love to paint things, so get this muffler off and give that a quick coat of paint as well. And let's give it a dusting of high heat silver paint. So let's put a bit of paint on these risers and on this cutting disc. So whilst that paint is drying, let's get the wheels off of this rusted out old base onto this alloy base. So just get in there with our screwdriver and pop these hubcaps off. And then we just need to get the little U-clip off of. It's pretty easy, pop out like that. Now the nice thing about this mower is it's actually got wheels with roller bearings. So we want to keep all of those bearings if we can. If they fall out, we'll pop them back in. So I swapped the wheels over there on time lapse. Now, as I said, these wheels all have ball bearings. And what I did was I was just really careful to stick my finger in, hold those ball bearings in. The first wheel, a few of them actually fell out, so then I carefully put them all back in. But I also used a bit of lubrication as I was putting the wheels back on, just so the wheels spin nice and freely with these roller bearing wheels on Frank. So now that we've got the wheels on the base, let's flip it over and get the engine onto it. But before we put the engine on, we'll just pop the painted muffler back on, because it's much easier to put these engines on with the muffler on. So that was a bit of a wrestle to get that muffler onto the engine, but far easier now to get that engine onto the frame with that muffler on, because it actually lines up the exhaust port. So we'll just lift that over the top, just like that. And then we can line up all of our holes and put our bolts straight in. So I just had a bit of a rummage around the shed and found this starter. It doesn't retract overly well. Well, it does go back, probably get better with time if it's used. However, when you look on this side, it does engage straight away. So let's get this starter off, this starter on, and see if this one will actually pull a little bit better. much better. So super important to clean the carburetor. I've actually just completely disassembled this one off camera. There's plenty of videos on my channel on how to do this, so just look up my channel. But if you don't do that, just make sure you spray some carby cleaner into the faceplate with that off, and you can see when you do that, it should actually come out. That shows that it's not blocked. Then also spray some carburetor through this little copper jet slash face screw just to make sure that's nice and clean. Now importantly, I've actually got a new faceplate to throw on to this carburetor. It's just going to make it so much easier to start with a brand new faceplate that's just going to seal nicely. It's not going to flood, so we'll just get that in on there. Like I say, there's plenty of videos where I fully explain all of this on my YouTube channel. A little bit of silicone spray just on that O-ring, just so that that will slide in nicely. We drop the needle in, make sure we drop it in the right way onto the seat, put the float on, and then we put that into the carburetor. Push that in firm. There are markings to show you which way up that goes on these faceplates. I'll just line that up perfectly. And then I'm just going to screw this screw in. Now it is plastic, and I always say this, folks, on all of my videos, just screw it in by hand. And if it doesn't feel right, just back it off, because you will break the carburetor housing because it is only plastic. You see, I've just screwed that in by hand there. I'm only telling you this so you don't make the same mistakes that I've made, where you bust the carburetor housing and then you've got to go find another one. Just line that up nice and level, and we'll do it up tight. So that should be the fuel side of things sorted. So we should have good compression, spark, fuel. This mold should run. So let's pop that freshly rebuilt carburetor onto the inlet manifold there, and we just turn that. Now pop the governor hose on and the vacuum line onto the decompressor. I think what we'll do now is we'll just get some fuel in the fuel tank, pop the fuel tank on, let's see if she'll run. So let's pop this top cover just temporarily back on, just like that. Let's just pop one screw in there just to kind of hold that. We shall put the fuel line on, and let's put some fresh two-stroke in there. So turn that on, just check that it's got fuel coming through, give that 3 primes, and let's give it a pulse, see if she'll start. How good is that, folks? First pull, I couldn't shut that down because you probably noticed that I didn't actually set the ignition wires into the carburetor. So now we'll get that top cover off. we'll set up the ignition wire so we can actually switch it off. But I just switch it off on the tap there and let that run out of fuel. Fantastic, sounds like a really healthy engine. So we've got the Frankenstein coming along really nicely. Get the nice set of shiny black bars on. This is going to be one heck of a good looking alloy bodied mower named Frank. So let's get that top cover off and sort those ignition wires. Now, this can be one of the most frustrating things to do on a Victa mower, is getting these ignition wires so that actually switches off and on. What you got to do first is you got to get the throttle. I don't actually have it on the handlebars because we've got no bars on this yet. But you put that in the middle position. Right, then you've got these two wires. What's basically happening is to switch it off, these connect together and ground out. So I've got a brand new rubber kit to go on this one. What we're going to do is we're going to put this over there like that onto the ground wire. Then we're going to put this little rubber on just like that. Going to pop him in just like that. I'm going to get some silicone spray. You say Drew loves his silicone spray, just to get that in. Now, try and get you around into a decent position to show you what I'm doing. So what we've got to do is we put this in like that. And as you can see already, this carburetor's actually got a little rubber grommet in there. So I'll take this one off, if I can get it off now. And let's see, with the boot on, let's see if we can thread. Okay, so that's threading through. So now we put the boot on, slide that up, and the tricky part is getting the next one on. So I'll just bring you around here. So we've got to bring the carburetor around. The carburetor's going to come around. So this one here has to thread down through all of the holes. There we go. That has slid in just nicely. Now, if I work the throttle, I'll just move this out the way so you can see. You can see that brown wire, that one there. When I move the throttle to the off, that comes across, and that should be grounding it out. So perfect. Let's get it back together, see if we can switch it off. So let's pop that carburetor back on. Connect that vacuum line to the decompressor and the governor vacuum line. Now, this engine, when I pulled it apart, didn't actually have one of these plastic protection shrouds, but let's pop one on anyway, just to stop the grass or anything getting into that engine. That looks like it's the right height, that one as well, which is fantastic, and it's going to lift that tube up off of the paint of the alloy body there. So get this on, and hopefully this will be the last time that we'll actually be putting this top cover back on. So let's get that pull cord through. These are sometimes just a little bit fiddly. There we go. That is all sitting really nicely. So we pop the fuel line on, turn the fuel tap on. Let's give it 3 primes. We'll go down, back to the middle, and give it a pull. So there you go, we've now got the ignition. We've got it switching off from the throttle control now. So all we need to do now is to pop some bars on this, put the hubcaps on, and I reckon we're about done. And then if you know me well, a bit of WD-40 on the plastics, just to make them pop. This can's pretty empty. See if we can get all the way around. I reckon WD-40 should send me a few free cans actually. So folks, building up this mower, and how stunning does it look? I didn't actually have a matching catcher for it, but I sent a photo to the young lad Marcus, who I got the shell from originally, and he said, wow, that looks impressive. And by the way, I know where I can get you a matching catcher. And just look at this, folks. We've got a 40-year-old green matching catcher for the Frankenstein Victa that we've just built up. Now, as you can see, it's got a bit of duct tape on it. I'll just peel that back, and you can see there's a few small cracks in the catcher. But let's get this catcher cleaned up. Let's see if we can put a couple of small little fiberglass patches, and then we're going to have the complete matching green Victa Frank with a modern Powertorque engine on it. Let's just see how that's going to look now. Have a look at that, folks. How good, you can imagine, how good is that going to look? So let's give this green catcher a thorough clean. So having given that catcher a thorough clean, I can actually see that there's a little crack here where I took the duct tape off, but there's also a little crack over here. But apart from that, this catcher is in absolutely remarkable condition. So I've just got my Dremel out. What I'll do is I'll just clean up the inside, just to rough the inside of that plastic where I'm going to apply that fiberglass patch to start with. Okay, so you can see what I've done here is just roughen up the inside of that plastic on both of those spots where I'm going to do the repairs, so that we can get a really good bond with the fiberglass resin. So in terms of the actual fiberglass itself, I'm just going to cut a couple of little pieces just like this, just to come in on each of those spots. So I'll be able to put one patch in there, and then we'll put another patch around in here like that, and that will make that super strong with those couple of patches. So let's mix up some resin. Just get the lid off this. Just going to use gloves because it gets really messy. So just going to tip that into an old plastic container. That should be heaps. And then we'll get the hardener, put 20 odd drops in there, give that a decent stir, and then we want to just tip some resin in where we intend to put the glass. Just get it onto that surface, spread out just like that, get the glass in there, and then just work the resin into the glass until it's all clear. So with those small cracks repaired in the catcher, the final thing to do is to simply spray it down with a bit of WD-40 just to make that catcher just absolutely pop and match the mower. And folks, how good is that looking? That is just looking fantastic. I'm really, really impressed with how fantastic this mower is looking, folks. So folks, what do you think of Frank, built from junk around my backyard? I think Frank is looking absolutely magnificent. However, I've just found an advertising brochure of the original Victa Mustang released in 1983. So this chassis is 40 years old, and I'll throw it up on the screen so that you can compare the difference of the original to this one. Drop a comment down below on what do you think. Do you think my representation with a modern day Powertorque engine, the roller bearing wheels, looks better or the original. But furthermore, I've just been digging around the shed, and as you can see from that photo, it actually came with a white top and with red hubcaps. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to chuck on the white top and the red hubcaps, and we can have a look to see whether we think it's going to look better with the white top and the red hubcaps or not. So there you go, folks. That's what Frank looks like with the white top and the red hubcaps. Drop a comment down below. Tell me what you prefer. Do you prefer Frank with the white top, red hubcaps, or the black top and the yellow hubcaps? What's your version? Leave us a comment below. Put it out to the public how Frank should stay forever. Anyway, if you've liked this video, hit the like button, drop a comment below. Truly love reading through all those comments regardless. And if you're into DIY maintenance on lawnmowers or around the home or maintaining and servicing your own vehicle, on the channel we've got the Mercedes, the Audi, the Mazda 3 and the early Ford Falcon. So if you're interested in any of that content, do subscribe to the channel. But until next time, have a good evening.